Hi everyone, my name is Vahid Gharavi. I started my career as a Java developer, where I worked for some years on big monolithic applications, where I moved from there to mobile applications, developing Android and iOS apps with the backends. And since around a year ago, I've been working as a product owner at Metro.
Good. Good morning. My name is Sven Lipowski. I'm a customer journey lead at Metro. And customer journey doesn't mean the journey through a website, but I will present you later on our personas within the cash and carry business. And I'm leading all digital tools for one of these customer groups. So we are very happy to be here. We want to present you what we had as a journey in the last 1.5 years, how we try to change our business with microservices and the surrounding organization and method. And we would like to share some of our learnings with you. So we prepared a couple of informations, how we are working, what is the method, and in the end, we come to the conclusion. But overall, we want to persuade you to come to Düsseldorf, because Düsseldorf is a nice place. And of course, we would like to persuade you to come to our booth and talk to us. And the quality of living in Düsseldorf is quite high, so just feel persuaded afterwards. So, we work for the Metro Group. We concentrate with our digital readiness project on Metro Cash and Carry, but we are part of a bigger group. This group is consisting out of well-known retail brands, Media, Saturn, and also Real. But as I said, our main focus of our doing and also of the presentation today is the cash and carry business. The cash and carry business is, just to give you a rough idea about what we're doing and what the scale of the thing we are trying to realize is, we are covering all tools and processes of 25 countries, and 750 stores are operated in these countries. This is done by 112,000 employees, which is of course also a customer group for us, implementing the tools for these employees. And the sale is roughly around 30 billion euros. Out of which we have 10% delivery. Why am I mentioning that? Because the first part of our digital readiness journey is covering the tools and the processes for the delivery customer. The delivery customer is, and I will give you a couple of more details later on. The delivery customer is a specific group of customer which is not coming into the stores mainly, but is being delivered. And the processes of delivering, fulfillment, and everything around that are specific needs. And it's a very important group for us. And this 10% of turnover, so roughly 3 billion of turnover, is what we cover with the first chunk of our digital readiness platform. So, what did we do? We took a look at the customer. We did a lot of analysis about this customer. We talked a lot with the customers, with the colleagues in the countries, and we took a look at all areas of the customer. So, these customers are mainly entrepreneurs. These entrepreneurs are driving their own business with a lot of passion, with a lot of energy, and they want to be supported. And they want to be well supported, efficiently supported, and they need support in every aspect of their business. So they need support around the clock, for sure, 24/7. They need to have support at every place, either be it in the office, in the restaurant, wherever they are working. We need to cover various ways of fulfillment. Deliver it, let them pick it up and come to our stores in the departments and pick some fresh food up, and so on. They are mostly connected in local communities, so restaurant owners are talking to each other, traders are talking to each other, so this aspect is also has to be covered. There's a lot of personal connection between the colleagues, either be it of the sales force, so the colleagues from us who come to the entrepreneurs and visit them on their premises, or in the stores. And there has to be a lot of direct contact with our products and solutions. So every aspect here is covered by our digital readiness approach. So we took really every aspect of that and digitalize it for, in the first step, for the 3 billion turnover business, and now in the second step we talk about the whole 30 billion. In detail, what are the customer we are serving? And I said I'm customer journey lead. I'm responsible for Mario, which is the second here. But let me start with Elizabeth. And as you can hear, it's not the easiest and catchy name. Therefore, we named the first project Betty. It's a bit more catchy. So the Betty project, the last 1.5 years, was realized with Freiheit.com. Some of you might have heard the presentation which was done by Stefan yesterday, and these learnings he presented was mainly out of this Betty project. So the Betty customer is the delivery customer, not so often coming into the store, stays at the premises and is being delivered. Again, 3 billion of turnover. Now Mario is my little fella, and this customer is the main HoReCa customer, hotel, restaurant, caterers, and these HoReCas have a lot of omni-channel needs. They come into the store or they order at home. They want to pick it up in the store. They want to maybe come into the store and shop and order something which has to be picked up or delivered afterwards. There is a lot of omni-channel aspects in there, and the customer is also expecting a consistent experience throughout these channels. Then let me shortly go through the other customers. We have as another main customer group the traders, little mom and pop shops in the Eastern European part. For Germany it would be the kiosk or the petrol stations and stuff like that. So more price driven, very focused on what they want to have, and very picky in terms of the services. Then Oleg. Stefan is the SCO customer, small companies and organization, usually the customer who does not fulfills his main need with us. So lawyers or offices who buy paper, printers, whatever, and they are covering their business with something else, but they buy with us. And then we have Maria, completely complementary. Although we are a wholesale business, of course, there are people buying for their personal needs or out of different reasons, having a card and access to the stores, and this is the last customer group. So overall, these are the customer groups we want to tackle with our digital readiness project. And as I said, Betty is up and running in Germany, and a couple of other countries are now following. And we are about to discuss all the concepts and the ideas for Mario. And then afterwards, Oleg will follow. And we think that as soon as we have covered these three customer groups, also the needs of the others will be mainly covered. So let me go one layer down. We were always good in building stores. So we knew how to build the environment of the 750 stores. For example, eBay contacted us and we did a nice project in Bremen for the eBay pop-up store. So we know how to build physical stores. We did it, 750 cash and carry, 1,000 in Real, and so on and so on. But we did not know very well how to build digital stores, how to build a state-of-the-art digital front end where the customer is fulfilling his needs on his own. So we wanted to do that in a very professional way, in a very modern way. So we not only took the former monolithic software we had for this chunk of business, but we also changed our complete way of thinking, our complete organization, our method, and at the moment there are roughly 150, 180 people working in this digital readiness areas, and this is roughly how it looks like. So we said, although we want to work agile, we have to embed it in an enterprise world. We cannot forget that we have 25 countries having needs towards the corporate organization, having slightly also a need for local adaptations, and so we came up with this organization. Let me begin with the domains. This is the blue layer. So we decomposed the former functional bracket around our delivery business and decomposed it in manageable domains. These domains are explore, evaluate, the warehouse management, checkout, and so on. And there we said, okay, what is needed from a customer perspective as a functional asset in these domains? So, for example, for explore, and Vahid is the product owner for Explore, so he's the expert there, is everything around what does the customer need to explore our offers in the digital store. There is searching in there. There is the list management. So just try to imagine this professional entrepreneur sitting in his kitchen, and he's usually buying the same stuff every week for delivery. So potatoes, sugar, whatever. So there's a different behavior than search and browse in the normal omni-channel world or multi-channel world. There is a quite specific need of ordering a huge amount of articles repetitively every week. So there's in Explore, there's list management. We need very professional support for this kind of buying behavior. And we have the whole customer entry point there, so login and customer data. Then we have evaluate, everything around article, stock, availability. Then, of course, the warehouse management. We did not only rework the front end, but we also reworked the whole back end, meaning the delivery functionality, the pickup support, the warehouse management, and so on. So there's a huge chunk of functionality in there. Checkout for sure. Customer relationship management, and the whole master data and backend information. We did that from a function perspective. We took the domains, and in these domains we built verticals. Verticalization might be not new for the most of you, but shortly in a nutshell, dedicated development team, not more than 10 people, led by a professional product owner, and this product owner as an interface between the business needs and the development team. This works quite well. And Vahid will go into details there. And we built all these verticals, and this is based on an internal platform engineering team. This platform engineering team is managing everything from the operational running of the platform until the firewall and the networking issues. Although Stefan yesterday said that maybe running his own hosting in-house is not the smartest thing to do, because there are professionals who can do it much better. We have specific needs, and Vahid will explain that in a second, why we decided that way. Then we have, of course, a huge bunch of legacy systems. We have a huge warehouse management. We have a huge data warehouse, and so on and so on. And these applications are still in an old mode, let's call it that. Very professional, very profound for 25 countries and the business we are doing, but slower than we are moving. And therefore, we put in abstraction layers. We built an article cache, we built a stock cache, we are building a customer cache to become a bit independent from that legacy world and to make that happen. And then last but not least, the yellow layer, which is my job, is although you are working in the verticals, and it's very, very nice to have small functional bits and pieces to tackle the business needs of these pieces, you need a bracket around that from a customer perspective to bring everything together. So it's a bit against the vertical aspect, but again, remember, we are living in an enterprise world, we have a lot of stakeholders, a lot of needs, and this is the reason behind that. So I think this is one of the first learnings. We started without this customer journey leads, but we thought that it's very a nice thing to have that role, and it's I think it's working. Good. So in a nutshell, we drive very, very customer-centric idea with that. So we really focused on what the customer wants. And we are driving agility before efficiency. So we are not cost-driven. We are really pace and agility-driven in this approach. So what we did is we built what you can see is the start screen of the Betty product, for the delivery customer. But we also started with a couple of other projects. So we are rebuilding the customer master data management. So everything around the customer files, and this is very special for our business. We know every customer, we know every transaction, we know all the master data around it, and we can do much more. We do not have to have, yesterday we saw machine learning in some of the other talks for getting ideas out of customer behavior and trying to extrapolate that. We know everything. We can rely on all the business aspects there, and this is one of the projects. The other one is for the sales force, for all the colleagues who are visiting the customers at the premises, and we also are building on the same platform an application for the drivers. So this was in a nutshell the overall project, and Vahid will now present you why we choose microservices and how this is connected to our business approach.
Thanks, Sven. So if you think about microservices, where it came from, think of the poster children of microservices, companies like Netflix and Amazon. These were companies that were facing huge issues. They had to either turn the business around, they had to capture new markets, they had to have a global presence, scale tremendously. And it was about being fast and being able to respond to market change. So this is actually the point about agility that Sven mentioned. And if you want to be fast and scale in that way, so this would be a good fit. It's also, if you think about it, the last couple of years, with the fragmentation of devices and the clients that you have, also be able to support this, so your customers have a seamless journey. So in the case of Amazon and Netflix, for example, Amazon being the #1 digital retailer in the world, and Netflix going from a DVD renting company to being responsible for a third of the internet traffic in North America in the evenings, which is quite incredible. So scaling like that. So it's about being fast, it's about business agility. So if you have Docker in production, that's really great. But we see it as more than that. We see it really as being able to respond fast. This is an example of that, what we mean. So Sven mentioned the different user journeys that we have. Here we have Betty, one of the user journeys, one of the projects that we have. And each of these small circles is a microservice. We build this product with these microservices here. And for the different projects, we can reuse those microservices and complement them with additional microservices to deliver that. Same for this project here for Oleg. And remember that we're in 25 different countries, so we have to adapt to local needs, and we have local regulations where we have customizations that we need to do where we go in a new market. And with microservices, we can be better at that. Some statistics about our developer team. We're more than 100 developers. We have dozens of daily deployments to production. In the project that I'm working on, we have 120 different services, and we do around 20 to 30 different 20 to 30 deployments to production. And with the replicas that we have 216 Java processes running, which is a statistic from 2 days ago, to deliver one of the applications that we're delivering. Maybe some interesting statistics for developers. We're using Java 8 in the backend. We use React in our front end. We use Kibana logs quite a lot, logging heavily, and we have a lot of Kibana dashboards where we check things like performance, where we occasionally monitor stuff, dig out errors, analyze errors, things like that. And the main language is Java, but we also have other options, like you see, Node and Go. And this also speaks for the agility and the flexibility that you have. For example, we're using Node because in cases where it makes sense, because in one case we found the best PDF generation library as a Node package, and then we're doing that service with Node, for example. We don't want to have a lot of rules, but we have some guidelines in place. When you're working on this scale, you need to have something like this. To ensure a seamless, flexible development experience, software development process, and also to ensure that your customers are getting the quality that you want. One of these is mobile first. So this is what we have in mind in all development. Mobile first is not just about responsive design, it's also about being able to optimize for bandwidth, to be able to handle offline situations. As Sven mentioned, one of our biggest customer segments is restaurants, where they are often in the kitchen or they have to go to the cellar to get stuff, and they don't always have an internet connection there. And we need to think about these things. We want to have our microservices using synchronous calls because we want them to be as dependent as possible. Our platform team wants to be able to restart the service without having to worry about that. We use REST between services, just as an agreement that we have to make life easier for developers. We use open source software, so actually we really try to only use open source software as much as possible because we've been locked in with vendors for a long time, and we've had problems with that, and we're trying to get away and be more flexible with that. And as I mentioned, we use Java because we're good with Java. We have a lot of developers that know Java are good with that. And we have things like developers moving from team to team, and that's just easier, unless there's a good reason to do it differently and use something else. So just something about DevOps. DevOps is also a term that has become a lot more popular with microservices. And this, I think, is not a coincidence. There's a reason for it. So you want to have teams that are able to do all of these things, are self-sufficient, are autonomous. They can manage the whole delivery pipeline over there. So if you have an operations department and a development department, and these guys hate each other and they avoid each other in the cafeteria, then maybe you have to think about that again, because you can start doing microservices, but you will find out soon that you will have to change that. You have to have teams that are that can manage this whole process. So a great fit. This is what we try to do. About data persistence, so one of the learnings for most of us is we had something like this before. So this is the traditional thing that we have, which is a big monolithic application and a big database, and it's working fine in this way. What we have with microservices is we want to go to something like this, that we don't want microservices sharing each other's persistence and accessing key spaces or tables that are accessed by multiple microservices at the same time. So this can result in questions like, what if I have common data between two microservices that I want to share? Well, you can either have a third microservice serving this data, or you could copy the data. I mean, this is the least preferred way. If you don't have the few milliseconds to spare to fan it out, copy the data, but you will have to care about the consistency of the data between these two microservices. So in Stefan's talk yesterday, he had a really great talk about the 36 methods of doing microservices, which was actually quite a lot more. He mentioned one of the points of don't build your own data center or your cloud platform. I completely agree, but this is what we did do. Why? Because of these reasons that are there. We didn't want to get locked in with AWS or Google, one of these vendors, because we don't know how that goes in the future, with the costs, with different things that might change. We are global, so we are in many countries, and these countries are Russia and China as well. And in these countries, we have to, in these cases, have data centers within the borders of the country. So the cost in the long run, I think, will be in our benefit and the customer data that we have. So we know our customers because our customers are registered with us. And in this case, we have American cloud providers. If we would go for that, we have to think about the customer data integrity as well. But it was not easy to set this up. It was actually quite challenging. And it was challenging because we were an early user, like setting this stuff up, and we had to deal with the complexities. So there was a lot of learning, and we've actually been running our production platform now on Kubernetes since the beginning of this year, and on Q&A and acceptance before that. And so this is quite early on such a scale on production. Some of the challenges that we are still facing, we have many Kubernetes clusters where we have the different applications running, and most of the time service discovery within the same cluster is fine. But between the different clusters, if two services want to talk between clusters, that can be a little bit more challenging. And logging. So with logging, with this scale, you don't have the log file, one log file, but you have 120 different log files, and these are just logging like crazy, and you have to be able to consolidate that. So this is also one of the things of being early, is that we didn't have a lot of tools on the market that we could reuse. So things like Vamp.io or Spinnaker that are there now, or other tools. And we built our own deployment manager to manage our deployments to our continuous delivery process. And this is actually an application that we wrote in Go and with ClojureScript. And one of the developers who did it will actually give a talk later today with live coding with Clojure, so I would recommend that one. And this is a screenshot of how it looks like. And we have features like, if you look at each of these small circles, each of these is a commit. And here we have different environments. In this case, for example, we can see that these commits are already on pre-production. In this case, these are on production already. And in between, this is something that is on pre-production and not yet on production. We can also lock certain commits so that they stay on production if we don't want something to go. And features like that, having an overview of exactly what your environments look like. So to go to more challenges that we're facing, one of them is integration tests. And this is why integration tests are important. So integration tests are a little bit challenging because unit test is fine. It's, I wouldn't say much different. And integration testing is a bit more difficult because if you want to test your service and your service is calling two other services and these are calling two other services, you want to test this as a developer locally, you have to fire up these services. And you have to be able to have test data. So the test data should be there. So you would have to have a test database image, which you should be able to fire up. And you have to think about these things. And this doesn't always go really smoothly. So if you would have a problem with starting any of the other services, then this would take time. And if you develop a service, you have to make sure that the test data is delivered for it, because if somebody else wants to test something. This is something that takes some development time, and we spent quite a lot of time in integration testing. Another thing is synchronizing core infrastructure. You don't want to share too many libraries within your microservices when you're on this scale, but some of the things we have there, like if something is related to a certain compression or encryption, and the thing is, if you have to update this in all of your microservices, and you have 120 microservices, you have to update in 120 microservices and deploy. So you might think that there should be better ways to do this, like things like Puppet and Ansible, but it could be, and this is something that we have to work on a little bit more to manage this a little bit better. So release management is also a little bit challenging. I don't mean release management in the sense of like really releasing, because we do continuous delivery. We're deploying to production every day, but in the sense of some features that you want to control when they go to production and when your users are using them, because we're in many different countries, and in some countries, maybe employees of country A are trained, and in country B, they still have to get trained. They're not there yet, or there are local regulations that you have to take into account, and you want to control when these features are going live. The thing is that we don't do branching, because branching on this scale is something that we just don't want to do. We want to deploy, we want to commit to master, which goes to production. And so what the other option would be to do feature toggles, to have feature toggles in your code and control it in that way. But if you want to do this on a big scale, this is also something to avoid, because first of all, you get really complicated code base, challenges in your testing, things like that. But of course, it's not all rainy, so it's big advantages like the ones that I mentioned before, and these advantages here on the right, which are really important to us in our company. So independent scalability, if you have part of your application which has to be scalable, which is receiving a lot of load, you can just scale microservices in that part. You can create more replications in that part. Your database has to be able to handle it. That's a different thing. Multiple versions. I worked a lot with mobile apps before, and the thing is with mobile apps, you release it, and you release new versions of your mobile app, and a lot of users, they don't update the app that often, and you have users that are using your mobile app versions from 6 months ago. And in these cases, you have to still support those. And with microservices, you could then just have older versions of your service providing older APIs to support those. And once everybody has moved over, you kill that service, older service. Canary deployments. So this is when you want to release a feature just as a test to a subset of your users. Also done easier. Just release one service and have the 4 other replicas doing the old thing and measure that. And localized failures. This is huge, because as a developer, you're working on a service and you deploy it, and you know that it will go to production. You might be a bit worried about that, but the extent of your worrying is that you break your own service and you don't bring the whole application down. So these are just a few of them. Of course, we have a lot of other advantages that we are gladly using microservices for. And so this is just a short overview. I would like to hand over to Sven again.
Okay. Besides the rather technical, focused advantages and disadvantages, just try to imagine the situation we were in 2 years ago. We had a fairly traditional way of dealing with our IT landscape. We have a multi-stakeholder, multi-country organization, and we're coming up with the idea of becoming faster, more agile, and building that in. So I think it's not exaggerated if we say we were quite pioneer working in our company. We are now overall a very small group. If you just imagine the 112,000 employees with the digital readiness project, but we are the nucleus for changing the business, and we see that every day. So the discussions and the alignments out of the project are running in a very, very focused and very yes, small, decomposed way. In former days, with the monolithic approach, we had the typical waterfall discussions. We had a lot of countries putting in their demands. The demand management was done based on priorities. Stakeholders had to give their ideas on the demands, and then these were taken into the black box. It was developed, and after half a year, something was popped out of our IT delivery organization, and it was then consumed by the countries. And in this situation, of course, it's the least common denominator, I think is the English word. It was very long ago that the demand was raised. The demand was also consumed into a bunch of other demands and ideas out of different organizations. And everything of that has changed, and the feedback is enormous. We have the application is very well perceived because the countries and the stakeholders are completely involved into the work with these vertical teams. We do nearly everyday communication with the colleagues. Of course, we use Confluence and Slack and the other tools around that, and it's very well perceived because it's not anymore given the demand, then hide in your office, and then after half a year you can do the Caesar thumb, but it's being involved into the process and working on the solution and seeing it every day and seeing it growing is something which is, I think, one of the biggest advantages we have out of that. In this huge organization, you cannot always tackle all the needs, but it's a far better way to drive the discussions and to move that. And there, I think this is the one of the biggest advantages, which is coming from microservices, which is the technical platform, to ensure demodularization of huge functional bits and pieces, having the organization of agile teams working on these smaller functional bits, and then driving the customer centricity out of the approach into the functions. And this is really a complete new way of working, and it's very well perceived for organizations. So if one would ask me what is the biggest learning, this is the biggest learning. We had also, after the go live of Betty, a couple of other corporate functions approached us and asked, why is Betty running so good, and why is everybody talking about it? And then they start to rethink their thinking and working process, and they adapted a couple of the agile working forms also for their content work. Although they don't have something to do with coding, but they use the approach and the transparency and the tools to enhance their way of working on different corporate stuff. So I think we can be proud of starting to change our company and really developing in a direction which is very expected from us, because the customers are expecting this pace and this need for change. But we are also, I think, on a quite good track to change our company with that.
Mm-hmm. And our booth is right over there. So if you like the story and you would be interested in it, we would be really happy to see you at our booth. It's right behind this wall.
Yeah, and again, Düsseldorf is great. Really, I lived a couple of years in Hamburg, and Düsseldorf is great. Hamburg also. But, yeah, good. Yeah, that's it from our side.
Yeah. So we have some time for questions.
Yeah. Sandrine is waving. Where is the flyer? Did you? There it is. We have a hackathon, which is for autumn. The register stuff is at our booth, so feel free to join. Again, we are quite closely cooperating with Vahid. Also there are a couple of topics always which are out of interest. So visit us at our booth or come around at Vahid booth. So yeah, we are excited. Good.
Very.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So, some questions, please. Yes.
Hello. Thank you for your great talk. And I have a question to Vahid. Is the name right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How will you deal with the challenges about don't couple the microservices too tightly together? You didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
So this is a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is quite challenging and something to think about all the time. And we sometimes think of a solution, and then we think, oh, no, we shouldn't do it that way, because then we're actually not obeying our principles, which is to keep the microservices separate. So this is something that you have to actively think about, and it doesn't make things easier or cheaper, but I think we need to stick to it in order to achieve what we want to achieve and scale and the agility and to be able to support that. Does this answer your question? Yeah.
Well, you said we don't do branching, it's very ugly. So we don't do feature toggles, it's either very ugly. But I think you didn't mention the solution for your problem.
Yeah, maybe because we don't really have a great solution for it yet. So if, yeah, so it's difficult. It's one of the challenges that we're facing, actually. And yeah, feature toggles would be the way to go, rather than branching, because we just don't want to go there. And feature toggles at one point, I would expect it to be not manageable anymore when we're working on this scale. So it's a challenge. We don't know. So if you have great ideas, I would like to hear it.
Especially based on the fact that the features are the one thing, but just remember what Vahid said earlier, the different user groups and the different state of the user groups. So we have, with the solution we are now having, there are people working in the stores with that, and they are sitting in the order office, and these are, per store, there are 200 colleagues, and they have all the different way of dealing with the software, knowledge of the software, and so on, and you have to keep that in mind. So the discussion is not only about the technical feature, but about getting the idea of the feature in the head of this 112,000 employees, and then you are slowly coming in the direction of okay, do we do pop-ups? Do we do because first of all, our way of thinking is we would like, and this is how it's now realized, the application is as simple as possible, and it should be nearly self-explanatory, which is also quite new because our former application has a handbook which is like that. But now it's really easy to work with. But we want to try to keep that idea, and therefore it's not only the technical discussion, how to deal with these local needs and the different user groups, but also how to get the idea of the application into this colleagues' heads. Steff.
I'd like to add something about the feature toggles.
Yeah.
Because when you, so we say have everything in head branch because we commit all the time, and we don't want to have complex branches in the code for feature toggles as well. So we'd like to have small commits so that you push code even though it's not maybe used currently in the service, but it's already there, and you can see if something changes under the hood when you push this new code. And of course, there are also other things how you can connect services together. There's, for example, one thing, I think it's called Linkerd, which we are looking up now, where you can like route different services together in a specific configuration, and you can have different versions of these services running. So you can you can dynamically configure which services are actually connected or not, and so we can try out new versions on that and maybe push some of your traffic on that part of the cluster. So there are more things than just feature toggles and branches there, but we keep on learning.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Oh, there's another question.
So you said you are only using REST interfaces for communication between the services. Is there like a reason why you made this decision, like versus, for example, using also queues, feeds, maybe gRPC or something? Like, why do you only use REST?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, we are aware that there are other protocols that we could use. There are other ways to do it. The main reason was to have the simplicity of REST as a standard solution. So that would be the reason that I could mention. And actually, maybe Stefan, you can say something about that.
but to be honest, it's given as an architectural principle, so this is the guideline, but there's, of course, in the communication with our legacy world, there are other interfaces still running, and we are trying to minimize those and have as a target that we go for REST, but we also use SOAP and file transfer. Unfortunately, still, it would be a lie in such a big environment that we are already there, that we standardized everything. Steph?
Yes. So a very healthy day for her to run all the time. Yeah, we are. This was just the beginning. There was like this common notion of REST is like a standard interface for everything. And of course, when we're talking to the legacy steps, there are many more protocols involved. Today, I would, and this is also what stuff that we are discussing, I would go and do everything with gRPC actually. Of course, to the legacy systems, we also have queues, but I wouldn't have queues between microservices to copy data between services or whatever. So I think it's much, much easier and better to directly call services and have a fan-out architecture like that, like Netflix or Google is doing. And so this is what we are striving for, but actually with gRPC, you have much more interesting properties on stability of the interfaces and everything. So this is also what we maybe in the future will implement, because it's not that difficult, and it gives you a lot of extra stability in your services. Actually, I have a code, live coding later at 1500, where I show some gRPC stuff and microservices and Kubernetes.
Looking forward to that. Thanks for this lively discussion, especially based on the party yesterday. And hope you enjoyed our little talk. Are there not any more questions? Happy to have the discussion later on at the booth. Just contact us or approach us. And thanks for your attention. Have a good day.
Thank you.